Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about by far the most powerful 4-star unit in Star Rail, Tingyun. An absolute must-have for all free-to-play players, as well as she is just that strong. Even if she was a 5-star, I would still rank her incredibly high. If you're anything interested in Genshin Impact, you might know the character Bennett. She's essentially Honkai Star Rail's version of Bennett. Now, keep in mind, this is all based off of closed beta 3. She was a complete monster there, but I fully expect her to get some pretty major adjustments. But if she still looks anything like you're seeing in this video, she's probably still going to be by far the strongest 4-star character, and I'm going to explain why. And if it is going to end up that way, you absolutely want her on your account. Pretty much anyone needs to have her. And if you can, get some Eidolons for her as well. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. Tingyun's basic attack is pretty run-of-the-mill, 100% of her base damage here. It does have a bit of an interesting effect with the rest of her abilities, but we'll come back to that one. Her skill, Soothing Melody here, is very powerful and is her bread and butter. Her skill is going to apply a 50% increase attack buff to whoever she targets for 3 turns. Now the catch is here that you actually need to scale Tingyun's attack to a certain point to be able to allow that to get its maximum effect. So overall, you're going to need a reasonably fine-tuned relic and substat build in order to make her get the full value from her skill here. That's not too hard to do though. You don't have to go crazy and you can still run everything you'd like to and achieve this 50% buff. Now remember, it is on one character though for 3 turns. In addition to that, that blessed ally will also deal lightning damage equal to 40% of their attack every single time they attack or hit. So essentially, if your buffed carry is going to use their skill, they're going to do an extra little bit of lightning damage there equal to their attack. Now this actually can critically strike, and it does add up in the long run over a fight. So it's definitely nothing to look down on. It is quite strong and it is a big part of her boosting capabilities. Now that is going to be the blessing here. Now going back to her basic attack here, whenever you basic attack with a blessing active, you will actually deal additional damage on your basics equal to 60% of the attack of that blessed character. So if I blessed a Sele, well, I could steal some of her attack from my Tingyun and add it to her basic attacks as well. So she's essentially going to be basic attacking for way over 160% of her base attack damage, making her, do a little bit of damage here and there. Pretty good, not too bad. Moving on to Tingyun's ultimate here. She's going to be able to target an ally and regenerate them 50 energy. It's worth noting that this energy cannot be increased in any way, shape or form outside of her Eidolons, so it's going to be 50 every time, but in addition to that, it'll also increase the target damage by 60% for 3 turns. This is incredibly strong, very powerful. Now, Tingyun's technique here is going to allow her to gain 50 energy per use before a battle starts. So essentially what this is going to mean is that you can always start the battle with an ultimate available for your team. So you can start that battle out and use that ultimate straight away on your carry and likely give their ultimate straight away as well. Now when you get to Tingyun's traces, it only gets even stronger. So her basic attack damage is actually just increased overall because of one of her traces. In addition to that, Tingyun also gets 40% increased speed every time she uses her skill for 1 turn. Now this is by far her most powerful trace, so it's going to create a playstyle where you want to do the following. Use the skill, use the basic, use the skill, use the basic, and you're going to alternate between using those to maintain that 40% speed buff and also maintain the buff effortlessly on your carry or character that you want to buff. This is also going to generate maximum energy to allow you to get as many ultimates as possible on your target there. So overall, this package here is going to really turbocharge one character to the absolute limit. In addition to that, her final trace here generates 5 energy at the start of each of her turns. This again synergizes with that increased speed playstyle. You really do want to be alternating those skills and attacks and really going down that road to generate maximum energy for that ultimate. Now, we're going to cover her Eidolons here because I think that Tingyun is a character that people, even free-to-play players, will want to target in terms of Eidolons. If you see her in the shop to buy and you already have her, you could absolutely pick up an Eidolon and make her even more powerful. So let's get into it. So her Eidolon 1 is by far the most important and the easiest to be in reach. It's going to allow her blessing when it's on an ally to grant them 20% increased speed after they use their ultimate. Now, of course, we are giving them a ton more ultimates. If you're curious, over a 7-turn fight, we'll get to this a bit more later, she gives 4 additional charges of her own ultimate. So that's going to be 200 energy. So if your ally or your target of the buffs has 100 energy cost for their ultimate, you're giving them 2 additional ultimates on top of their existing amount that they're doing. Most characters are going to ultimate 3 times in 7 turns, so you're essentially giving them almost double ultimates over the course of a fight, which is obviously incredibly powerful. Now, it might not work out quite that perfectly, but you're going to give them at least 1 extra ultimate, and this Eidolon here is going to give them even more speed to give them more damage after those ultimates. So it's very, very strong. And overall, it's going to be an incredible buff to your team. It's going to benefit slower characters more than faster ones though, so it is definitely good to keep that in mind. Her second Eidolon here is going to allow them to gain extra energy upon defeating an enemy. This one is particularly powerful in a well-invested CLA, as she is all about kill streaks and, killing as many enemies as you can and then chaining together all those ultimates, so this is really good for that. I mean, obviously she's also quite good with other characters as well, but it's particularly good with that one there. And then her Eidolon 4 here is going to increase the damage multiplier of Bless. So our understanding here is that it's going to take the 40% lightning damage here and take it up to 60% lightning damage, which is essentially boosting that portion of her skill by 50%, which is quite strong as it is a non-negligible amount of damage. And then finally, her ultimate is going to go from giving 50 energy to 60 energy, which is a big, big deal. Over the course of a fight, those 4 ultimates, that's 40 extra energy. It's basically an extra ultimate, which you're giving everyone with that Eidolon active there. So very, very strong. Overall, an exceptional character and one that you're absolutely going to want on your account. But how do you use her? Show me just why all that is so powerful, Grimro. Tell me exactly how to do it. In order to understand why Tingyun is just so exceptionally powerful and such a universal character, I figure we should make some teams and show the difference between a team without Tingyun versus one with it, and how she really allows you to do so many more things at the cost of pretty much nothing. So as always, we're going to be using a 7-cycle fight here to build our teams around. This is the duration of pretty much all endgame fights in the Forgotten Hall. On average, some are 10, some are 6, so 7's a pretty good sweet spot to plan around. So we're going to be using that as our benchmark here, and we will be making teams around that. So we're going to be looking and seeing how many attacks, how many actions we can get in there, and how we can use those in the long term. So what we're going to do here is construct a standard team to kind of take a look at what a normal team looks like, and then see how Tingyun completely turns that on its head. So a normal team would probably consist of something like a Deneng, a Serval, probably a healer like Natasha, and then a support like Pella. Now, overall, the way that teams generally play out is that you'd like your 2 damaging characters to use their skill as frequently as possible every turn if you could. That would give you the most damage. And then you have your 2 supports here, pretty much just using their basic attacks and their ultimates to really support the team, and only using their skills situationally. And that'll give you a reasonably balanced team there. We're not fully balanced, but you could, ask several to take a turn off, and that would give us our balance there. So we got 8 plus 5, and then we got our 14 over here. That is going to give us 1 point spare. And it really is all about balancing skill point generation and consumption. Now, what's interesting here is that when you have a look at a unit like Tingyun, her buffs actually multiply and add in such a way that she actually provides the character that she is buffing with over 100% of their damage as a bonus. So if you buffed up Danheng and he did 100,000 damage in 7 turns, with Tingyun in the battle, he would do over that. He would do well over 200,000 damage with the buffs active. And because of the way that you play her with the basic skill, you can pretty much fully sustain the buffs indefinitely, and they're basically always going to have access to them. So they're always going to be at that enhanced, empowered state. And you can pretty much consider Tingyun as a second copy of your main carry. Now the reason this is particularly powerful though is because when you do that in the early game, you're getting to duplicate their light cone, their gear, pretty much everything about them, their traces. If they're your best unit, like a 5-star, you can duplicate their damage as well. So she's essentially doing that and giving you access to that character's full suite of damage again. And that's incredibly powerful. Now you're probably wondering, okay, that's going to cost a lot of skill points or something like that. You can't get all of that for free. That'd be ridiculous. Doubling my main guy's damage, and doing that for free or something like that, that would be crazy. Well, that's where Tingyun really does become broken. So if we replace Servile in that scenario and we use Tingyun, remember, we're going to be going basic skill, basic skill. That's the optimal way to play Tingyun. So we're going to do that here. 4 basics and 4 skills. Now remember that the blessing lasts for 3 turns or 3 actions, and Danheng here is only using 8. So we're more than covered in terms of keeping that blessing buff up and active on Danheng at all times. Even on faster characters like Sele, or even like faster ones like Su Shang, you can still keep Tingyun's buff up completely, no problems. And if you still want to go faster again with your main damage dealer, well, you can even invest in some speed on Tingyun and it will be just fine. But now you might notice something interesting. No skill points generated or consumed, but we're still getting the same amount of damage or higher. And we're also focusing that on our favorite character or our most powerful character. Now you are losing one thing though, and that thing will be some impact on the vulnerabilities and break bars of the enemies. Tingyun does not bring as much break bar potential as a true DPS character. But foregoing that for additional skill points as well as damage definitely seems like a fair trade-off. But it doesn't stop there though. So we can see here that our skill point consumption has absolutely gone way down. So now when we select our supports, we can see here that we have so many extra skill points to play with. We have an extra 4. So those skill points can be used on pretty much whatever we want. We could use them on healing, or we could use them on Pella's skill. Or you could introduce another character who you wanted to use a skill on, like maybe Silverwolf. Silverwolf's skill is incredibly powerful, and you can go ahead and use that pretty much as you need to keep it active, because Tingyun isn't consuming anything. And she's bringing pretty much most of the benefits of the other character who was going to be in this slot anyway. So you can pretty much combine Tingyun with any single damaging carry, and she's pretty much going to do that same job pretty much every single time. You can pair her with pretty much any free player unit, any super expensive unit, and she's going to scale just so fantastically. Now the cool thing about Tingyun though is that I calculated her benefit, that double damage, with full gear. Now, if you're interested in the nitty-gritty of this, you can check out the damage formula guide over on Pride in here, and you can really get a full understanding of this. But there's a concept in the game of Star Rail called diminishing returns. And essentially this means that if you increase a character's damage by 100%, let's say they were doing 100 damage, and you increase it by 100%, they'd be doing 200. But if you increase it by another 100%, so 200 total, they'd only be doing another 100%. So they'd be doing 300 total now. So that second 100% is only 50% as good as the first one. And then as you continue to go, the next 100%, the next 100%, they get progressively worse and worse and less impactful. So Tingyun is actually most effective when you have pretty much no gear. So this is going to make her an absolute powerhouse, which will allow you to steamroll through content quite a little bit easier in the early game when you don't have a lot of gear. Of course, she's still an absolute monster in endgame as well, based on the mathematical calculations we have so far. So overall, Tingyun is an exceptional unit, but it doesn't stop there. Because she is a true 0 skill point unit here, you can actually combine her with other units who consume 0 skill points to enable truly ridiculous combos. And one of the most powerful free-to-play accessible teams we've seen so far actually is enabled by Tingyun's no skill point cost here. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. So the team composition actually revolves around Tingyun using her role as we know. And then we also use Arlen, who also is another 0 skill point character here. Then you would have a healer to keep Arlen healthy and alive. We can't have him dying on us. And then you would use a character who is very challenging to use normally, but with this composition is actually very usable, and that is Bronya. So Bronya normally is quite challenging to use her skill effectively, because when you do use that skill, of course your carry is going to use 1 skill point on their skill, Bronya uses her skill, that's 2 points, and then the carry uses their skill again, that's 3 points. And doing that every turn is very hard to sustain, especially on faster characters. But with this double 0 skill point setup here, Bronya can actually get a few skills in and not feel too bad about doing so. So if we ran Bronya here, we can see here that she can use actually probably, I would say, quite a lot of skills here. She could probably use a good, she could probably use a good 6 skills and there would be no issues here for the team. Maybe 5, we'll set it to 5 to be a little bit realistic here. And that would be pretty powerful. 5 Bronya skills, in addition to her using her ultimate when it's up. We can now see that this double support team, which is one of the most popular as free-to-play accessible, is exceptionally powerful, and it's pretty much only enabled by Tingyun here being a 0 cost support, and of course Ireland also being 0 cost, pretty handy. But you can see here the flexibility of Tingyun. Not only can she slot in and support pretty much any carry no matter how fast they are and give them exceptional amounts of damage, but she's also able to fit into some of the most powerful endgame compositions that we currently know about in the game. In addition to that, she's a 4-star, so you can get access to those tasty Eidolons, and she's pretty much available to everyone. So, of course, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. There's plenty more theory crafting and build related videos on the way. And of course, do you think Tingyun is going to get nerfed? She does seem a little bit powerful right now with that massive damage potential and that 0 skill point cost. Until next time though, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Cheers.